The more things change, the more they remain the same. The housing market in Calgary and surrounding areas is completely predictable. The latest stats out of the Calgary Real Estate Board from the chief economist Anne-Marie Lurie states just that. We can anticipate year over year, with the exception of a few unusual situations, that housing is going to slow down at this time of year. The holidays are coming, people get busy, and the only ones on the market, buyers, are the ones that have to sell. Did you hear that, buyers? The only ones on the market when it comes to the holidays usually have to sell. They're moving, they have a new job, they're downsizing, they're upsizing, they have a clause. Like I was looking at the market this morning, and there's quite a few properties that are still active, but they have a time clause on them, which means they accepted an offer, but they're waiting to sell their own property or fill in the blank, that type of situation. So you have to pay attention to these things because it's not black and white balanced market. It sounds balanced, it looks balanced. Months of supply, when it goes over three, appears balanced. But remember, Calgary specifically has quadrants, and each of those quadrants performs differently. And in those quadrants, different types of housing performs differently. Now, let's be honest, the biggest area around the entire city, the type of product, the apartment condo, is crashing. Yep, we've got too much inventory. Thank you for that high density housing, by the way. It was completely predictable. The Calgary condo market was the last to make a gain, as 2022 was sort of a peak, and it's the first to come tumbling down. The northeast quadrant of the city was the last to get a gain, and it's the first to come crumbling down. All of those things are very predictable, and especially in the seasons and the time of year. So when people say, oh, there's a lot of inventory, well, there's more year over year, and there's less sales year over year in general. But you have to bake it down to the quadrant. And one big surprise is the luxury market. Detached homes over $1 million. They're actually making a gain. So, where's all this money coming from? hmm That's right. You look around Calgary and you see properties and homes and communities, unbelievable monster McMansion homes. Like it's unprecedented how much money is in this city. And they're still coming. They're still coming. Don't think for a moment that the overinflated prices in Vancouver and Toronto are now done and nobody's moving to Alberta. There's more tech companies that just announced they're moving into the city. And Alberta in general is projected to grow, and Calgary is going to double in size in the next 10 years. That's the prediction I'm hearing. We'll see what transpires. We really need some infrastructure to keep up with that. But if you've been sitting on the fence thinking, yep, housing prices are coming down, mm, are they? What do you want to buy? If you want to buy an apartment, by all means, wait and see what happens. Because the one thing about apartments is those condo fees. And if the property is not well managed, if the finances are not well managed, then don't buy into the condo because you also have to qualify for that part of the mortgage. Those homeowners association fees, the condo fees in BC, they're called strata fees. Really think about that, what you are getting for your money. And the second sector that is also hurting is the row and townhouse market. That is also subject, more often than not, to a condo fee. And that's what's slowing people down. People are looking at these fees, an extra $500, $600, $700 a month. And what are you getting? You really have to look at the fine print. But again, with this condensed housing that went on, the building in Calgary, in all quadrants, to be fair, it got saturated. It got overdone and also overpriced. And those fees. Like, come on, a brand new 600 square foot condo in Marteloup, condo fees are $700 a month. No, typically, if it's a well-managed property, it should be 50 cents, 60 cents a square foot that you can budget for. But a dollar a square foot for condo fees for what? Common maintenance, insurance? What exactly are you getting? And why is it so high? Those things have to have big question marks in front of them. Okay, so we talked about the condo market. It's about the same all around the city. Talked about row and townhouses. Then there's a semi-detached. Well, that particular sector is not really suffering. Let me read to you a little bit about that sector of the semi-detached. Sales in November were comparable to levels reported last year and still well above long-term trends, but with new listings also higher than typical levels for this time of year. Inventories rose to the highest November level seen over the past 5 years. While conditions have been generally tighter for this type of property over the past 3 months, we've seen the supply remain above 3 months. So it's a more balanced condition. But let me tell you this, benchmark price, 671,000. That's not even attainable for a first-time home buyer. So there might be some wiggle room there, hopefully, fingers crossed. So it remains stable compared to last year, and year-to-date price growth in semi-detached has been the strongest in this sector at nearly 3%, with the largest gains occurring in the city center at 4%. So that's a lot of numbers, but it's important to know, depending on what type of property you're looking for, what's trending. And those statistics, those numbers are at your fingertips. You can go on the Calgary Real Estate Board's website, and I'm going to link a copy in the show notes as well. And you can look at all these statistics and you can do your own deciphering as well. And you can even put them into ChatGPT or Gemini and get a second opinion. But keep in mind, real estate is a moving target. And we went through a point where people had the fear of missing out. Whoop, 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 up, up, up. And then they went fear of getting in. Oh, things are coming down. But don't let that fool you into not taking into consideration the time of year. Yes, that's why in Calgary the spring market is just unbelievably busy, because now it's the holidays and now it's winter, and who wants to move at 40 below? Nobody. Not unless you have to. So remember, those people who have properties for sale are serious sellers. And it's semi-balanced depending on where you are in the quadrant. Like I mentioned, detached homes have this surprising strength, and they're holding on because building has not kept up with demand, because the dream is not to live in a box in the sky. So let me read you the exact report out of the Calgary Real Estate Board on detached properties. Detached sales in November, slightly lower than last year's level, and relatively consistent with activity reported for November. The monthly reduction in new listings helped push down inventory levels compared to last month, but inventory remained well above the lower levels reported last year and now relatively consistent with long-term trends. Overall, the months of supply remained around 3 months. And it says reflecting a relatively balanced condition, but I'm going to say it's still a glimmer of a seller's market. Despite this, we did see unadjusted prices trend down over last month, mostly reflecting seasonal patterns. There you have it. The benchmark price in November was 733,000. Again, that is not for the first-time home buyer, but it's down 2% compared to last November. Not a huge differential. Most of the downward price adjustments have occurred in the Northeast. North and East districts, as competition from new homes and additional supply choice in other parts of the city are more heavily weighed on those districts. So that is the key. You need to know what is going on in your quadrant, what is going on with each particular property type. Now, I'm thrilled, for one, to see a lot new building going on because we still need more. Just as a little sidebar, think about the population growth over the last 3 years in Canada. Last 3 years, almost 3 million people were added to our population. That's a growth of 7%. And have we built housing, infrastructure, schools, hospitals, transit to support that? Calgary's not alone in that scenario. And that's why when you want to try and predict the future about where housing's going, think about where do all those people live? Are they in rental accommodation? Are they living with family? Were they sponsored to come to the country? Are they working in a trade? Are they staying? If so, eventually people want to buy. So, one of the other factors I personally take into consideration because I've worked both in the Canadian real estate market and the US real estate market is I watch what's going on in the States. And you have to filter through all of that politics and chaos and all those distractions, because that's what they are, distractions, and see what the housing market's doing there. Because we've had rate decreases in the federal government and in the states for the last 2 years. Housing has been going down, down, down. Twist of fate, now it's going up again. Even with all those tariffs, even with all those small business suffering because of the tariffs being imposed on the American people, even with all that happening, there is still money out there. So if you've been thinking of sitting on the fence, waiting for a super crash that everybody loves to predict, I'm not convinced that's going to happen yet. We have to see a lot more indicators before I start telling my clients, buy now, sell now, sit on the fence now. People have to do what's best for them. Everybody wants a roof over their head. Everybody wants to provide for their family. Everybody wants to work and have dignity and enjoy life. And wow, what a beautiful country we have. And I'm going to give you just one more tidbit from the Calgary Real Estate Board. But like I said, I'm going to attach some statistics that you can read for yourself at your leisure. But this is typical. So conditions going into the winter months remain relatively balanced. Inventory levels all slowed relative to the previous month. Very, very predictable. Supply levels have been sitting higher than typical levels for the past 3 months, mostly due to the gains occurring in the higher density sectors of row and apartment style units. That's a quote from Anne Marie Lurie, who is the chief economist at the Calgary Real Estate Board. And I really wanted her on the show, but she's very busy at this time of year getting ready for the forecast in January. She goes on to say this is partially related to the additional supply choice coming from new home sectors, some of which end up on the resale market, especially near the end of the year. While buyers' market conditions are more prevalent for apartment style homes and to a lesser extent row homes, outside of a few pockets of the market, both the detached and semi detached markets are relatively balanced. So there you have it for November. Let's just call it a balanced market. And then in some pockets, some quadrants in the city, if you're looking for detached or semi detached, it's either balanced or it's still a seller's market. It really depends on what you're looking for. Well, I hope that sheds some light on the big picture for you because it's not straightforward. And that's why you need a professional on your side. You need a realtor to help guide you through these steps because there's no place like home. And this is a huge decision. Think about it. How much money goes into purchasing a property or selling a property? That is someone you need by your side that's your advocate. That's how strong the bond needs to be between you and your real estate advisor because this is a lot of money and it's overwhelming. The choices, the decisions, pulling the plug to sell, deciding to buy, to jump in. If you need someone, you're at home with Diane Planidin, Realtor in Calgary in the Columbia Valley, licensed with eXp Realty. And I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financier. However, I am a loyal real estate advisor that's going to help you make a move. I'll see you soon.